Awesome. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's workshop. My name is Rachel and I'm going to be teaching your class, which I am so excited to teach because, as the title suggests, we are using all of our favorite flowers collected into one beautiful bucket. So I'll give you a little sneak peek. We've got some gorgeous types of foliage that we're going to be playing with, beautiful Snowball Viburnum, and then some of the most beautiful roses, lots of garden rose varieties, our new favorite, the painted brown tulips, Ranunculus, so lots of good stuff to unpack. And we're going to create a gorgeous garden style of design. So a couple of little housekeeping notes before we dive right in. Everyone should have a beautiful stone vase that we'll be designing in. And then also a sheet of chicken wire, which is going to give us our structure on the inside of the vase. You should also have a little instruction sheet that gives you the names of all of the flower varieties. And then hopefully around your house you've got some type of cutting tool that you can use. So I'll show you my favorite tools for floral design. I am an ARS clipper girl, I swear by these. They're Japanese clippers and they last and last. So these you can pick up on Amazon or you can buy from us if you like. And then I also, you'll notice, interchange with a floral knife. If you don't have floral clippers, you could use a pair of scissors, but we definitely recommend a dedicated flower tool just because it's the best to give a nice, clean, sharp cut. So to get us started, we're going to take our flat sheet of chicken wire and we're going to kind of roll or crumple it into a ball shape. And just tight enough so that it pops into your vase, but you definitely don't want to mash it too tightly together because you want to really leave nice big gaps and openings for the flower stems to insert into. So it does not need to look pretty at all. We're just going to tuck it into the vase, and I'll hold the vase up close so you can kind of see what you're after. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add room temperature water into our vase. And you don't want to fill it all the way up. You want to leave about an inch from the top just so that you're not overflowing your vase as you add stems. Room temperature is significant because if the water is too cold, it can be shocking for your flowers. And alternatively, if your water is too hot, it can cause them to blow open too quickly. That's a good little hack if you ever do want to force your flowers to open quickly for a dinner party or for an event. Warm water will do that, but it does shorten the lifespan a little bit. All right, so we're going to begin our adventure in design with laying a base of greenery. So I'm going to show everybody the varieties of greenery that we're going to be using. I love to always start with my greenery because I want to use it to kind of trace out a map of where our design is going. And also give some coverage over the chicken wire. So I'm going to dig out of my bucket, and they're packed buckets, so just be gentle as you uncover your greenery. I am searching for 3 different types of greenery. So the first type is a pistacia foliage, which is beautiful, came in from Holland. So we've got a little bit of that. We also have this gorgeous little leaf or Italian pittosporum. It's a variegated greenery. And then my personal favorite is fancy eucalyptus. We call it fancy eucalyptus because it comes from Holland. It's not domestic. And it's a beautiful, I'll come up close, silvery gray-green. And it's got some variation of color. So the tips are kind of like a silvery yellowy green. Also some pretty purple tones. So really gorgeous. So that's what we're going to start out with. The shape of our design today is definitely going to be more of an oblong shape, so something that would be really appropriate for a dinner table. And we're going to take our greenery, we're just going to clean off the bottom part of the stem, and you can do that with your hands. Just pull away the low-lying leaves that might sit beneath the water line. So you're gonna wind up with a clean stem, just greenery left on the tippy top. So I'm going to do that with all of my different types of foliage. I always like to get all of the prep work done first and then insert into my vase. It just makes things go a little bit faster rather than going one stem at a time. And when you get to your pistachia foliage, you may need to get a little bit creative with how you cut your greenery. So if you just watch here, you can separate out some of the laterals. So you can just clip from one piece into two pieces. As long as the stem length is long enough to really get into the water. So I would say the shortest stem length that you would want is probably 5 or 6 inches. Anything shorter than that, and it's not really gonna hit the water and your greenery might die. So fine to separate like this piece as well. I'm gonna need to do some surgery and just clip apart some of the laterals. All right, so I've got everything prepped. I'm gonna go ahead and layer in some beautiful greenery to trace out the shape of my design. And as you cut, a good rule of thumb, anytime you're handling a flower or a foliage, you wanna make sure that you are cutting at an angle. That's just going to open surface area on your stem so that it can do its best job drinking. So I always say, think of this kind of like, you can see a nice angled cut. Think of it kind of like a straw. If you don't give an angled cut, you're drinking through a teeny tiny little, like a coffee stir type straw, versus if you give a nice big cut, it's like the flower is drinking through a big gulp straw. So it does make a big difference. I'm gonna move over this greenery so you can kind of see a little bit more clearly what's going on. All right, so I'm gonna use my eucalyptus first, and I'm really allowing this to kind of overhang the base. I'm elongating my design, so just like that. And then I'm gonna come behind and fill in with my little leaf pit, which is not such a great line flower, but is good to kind of fill in closer to the baseline. And there's no real rhyme or reason to this. You're just covering up some of your mechanics and laying a pretty nest or base for your flowers to go in. So I'm definitely going to keep my little leaf pit a little bit shorter in stem length and allow my beautiful eucalyptus, this is a Stewartiana eucalyptus, to kind of elongate out the sides. So different types of greenery have different functions in your arrangement for sure. The pistacia is beautiful and airy, so you can use that closer into the baseline and also have some pieces that kind of trail out. Creating again that football shape, so it's a little bit more trim this side to this side and a little bit more elongated that side to that side. All right, so I'm going to pause here on greenery and I'm going to move on now to my flowers. So I'll give it a little spin so you can see, just giving a little base layer of greenery. So I'm going to start with my draping flowers first to give beautiful drape on the baseline, and then we'll fill in with our roses towards the end. So the first flower that I'm going to dye for are our gorgeous Hellebore. It's a light pink variety, and we're just starting to get into Hellebore season. So Hellebore are a great flower to use to get some drape in your design. And anytime you're trying to decide if a flower should be a draping flower or an upright flower, I always kind of look to the stem to see what the stem is doing. You can see that this guy has a little bit of a lean to him, so that's how I know that he's going to be really happy, beautiful, living lower in the arrangement. So I'm going to go ahead and again cut my Hellebore at a nice deep angle, and I'm going to place him in kind of draping or falling out of my design. So really beautiful right there. And then I'm going to take my other Hellebore. If you happen to get lucky with your Hellebore like I did, I've got one really long lateral, you can separate into two stems, so just like that. If not, just treat it all as one stem. And I'm going to, anytime I do a drape right here, I want to kind of balance off to the other side and give a tiny bit of height. So I'm just going to pop in my Hellebore like so. Really beautiful. All right, so the next ingredient that we're going to add is our Snowball Viburnum. This This is a really beautiful spring flower, and even though it feels like the dead of winter, we are really transitioning now into spring bloom. So we're seeing on the flower market a lot of viburnum, tulips, our bulb flowers are starting to come up, so lots of pretty things to look forward to. With our viburnum, we're going to again use this kind of as a draping green, and you can do that test so it bounces a little bit. That's how you know it's a great draping flower. So we're just going to pocket this in again along the base line. We're just going to spread it all over the place. So again, don't be afraid to cut the laterals. If you've got a really nice long lateral, you can split one stem into two. And viburnum is one of those flowers that looks very delicate, but it holds beautifully in a design, so you'll get a really nice long base life out of this. And anytime you're handling viburnum and you've got a woody stem like this, it's even more important to give a nice deep cut so that it drinks. A woody stem usually is not doing a ton of absorbing of water through the outer layers, so that's why it's even more important to get that deep angled cut. All right, so we're starting to kind of fill in our shape. It looks really beautiful. So just a couple more base flowers to work in. We've got gorgeous cream stock, and this is one of the few scented flowers in your bucket, so if you're smelling something, it's probably your stock. And with your stock, I would recommend peeling back just a little bit of the base of the flower. So if you look up here, I'll do that again. We're just peeling back a tiny bit of the base and all the leaves. And we're going to use just the tippy top. This is a gorgeous buttery yellow color, which is really pretty. It is considered a line flower, so it's very vertical. So this would not be a flower that I would use to create drape in a design. Instead, we're going to use it to elongate. So where you've got that eucalyptus kind of fanning out to the sides, we're going to put the stalk kind of on top of that. And I'm going to put two of them off to one side and then balance on the other side with my third. Just like that. So really pretty. All right. So I think we are in good shape for tracing out the base of our design. We've got our greenery placed, we've got our beautiful draping hellebore and our draping viburnum, and then we've got our line flower, our stock, placed. So now we're going to transition into our roses, which are our big bulk flowers for our design. And everyone has a really, really gorgeous mix of David Austin garden roses. We've got Miyabi garden roses, which are my absolute favorite right now. So I'm going to give you a little tour of what's in your bucket. Okay, so from David Austin, we've got three varieties. They look pretty similar. So we've got, I'll introduce you to the ladies. So this is Effie, which is a little bit of a buttery peachy yellow, really gorgeous. And then Eugenie is a pretty creamy white, has a little blush hue in the center. And then you also have an Ella or a Leonora, and mine is still quite tight. It came in this morning, but it will open to be huge and beautiful and the swirly center petals that we all love. So you've got those. Miyabi is a rose that takes my breath away. I'll pull out my Miyabis. So this is Miyabi. It will continue to open. These get to be huge, and they're beautiful bicolored, like a peachy coral in the center and a pink on the outside. So really fun and pretty. And this is a newer rose variety. This Miyabi, I don't know, in the last 2 or 3 years has become a thing. And this is such a sought after color right now. Everybody wants that taupey pink, the brown undertone. So really beautiful. We also have golden mustards. This is probably, I don't know, one of our top 5 most sought after wedding rose colors. It's a beautiful mustard gold yellow. And you can see it pairs beautifully. I'm trying to find my Miyabi that's most open. It pairs beautifully with Miyabi. So I think that's, yep, that looks like our rose situation for workshop. So we're going to plug these all in. We're also going to pull out of our buckets our Ivory Majolica spray roses and put those in at the same time. So, our Ivory Majolica spray roses, I'll show you up close, are just such a beautiful spray rose option. They open to look like a garden rose, but they are certainly not expensive, which is why they're so attractive and popular with brides and for garden style of design. And they're also, when we think about the color white, they're a creamy taupey white and not so much like a yellowish white, so really popular for that reason. So let's actually, before we plug in our garden roses, let's very quickly pop in our spray roses. The reason I want to do that is because I want the spray roses to sit recessed back a little bit more and allow the garden roses to kind of sit on top of or in front of them, because the garden roses are just too beautiful to cover up. So with our spray roses, we're again going to keep them cut on an angle, and the spray roses are going to kind of sit at different heights on the stem, meaning not all of your blooms have grown to the same level, and that's totally fine. That's actually going to work really well with this style of design because it's going to give us a bit of dimension that we're going for. So I'm going to work in my Ivory Majolicas lower in my design, so kind of sitting at the baseline. And Ivory Majolicas are such a wonderful staple ingredient of a garden style design because again, they are cheap, but they add weight and bulk to the design. So oftentimes when we're building our wedding formulas, we're always factoring in, a handful of stems of the Ivory Majolica, just as a really pretty filler. So I'll spin, and you can see everything is really taking shape. It's looking so beautiful and so lush already, and we still have a ton of ingredients left to go. All right, so now that we've got our spray roses placed, we're gonna go ahead and start working in our beautiful garden roses that have big, fat, fluffy heads. So again, just peeling off all of the low-lying leaves, and then we're going to take off any petals that need to come off on the outside of the rose. When you're handling your roses, you wanna make sure that you're never handling the face of the flower, or the pretty part of the flower. You're only handling the outer petals to try to avoid bruising. So we're gonna pop these in. If you wanna get your rose a little bit more open, you can just blow on the face and it'll pop right open for you. Doesn't hurt the flower. So we're going to begin tucking our roses in. And as you place your roses, don't worry about them sitting too perfectly in your design. So it's great if you build a little bit of dimension. So my rose here is sitting about an inch further out than my spray roses, which is tough to see head on, but here this side profile shows that it's sitting a little bit farther out. So just play around with your dimension as you go. Your Eugenies, we're going to pop in. You'll notice that a lot of the David Austin roses are named for British royals, which is kind of fun, so Eugenie is one of them. We'll just pop her in. All right. So I'm going to make a little pocket of garden roses here. Place your garden roses, you want to make sure that you're not putting them too tightly on top of each other because they are going to continue to really open over time. So give them some space to breathe as they go in. And watch how much personality and arrangement takes on when you add a new color. So I've got my golden mustard roses. I'm going to start adding those, but I am going to show you a little trick that I love to do to my roses. So this guy is a pretty tight, he's a standard rose. I'm going to reflex out some of the outermost petals. So to reflex, you're just curling out the outermost petals. We're not going to do it to the entire rose, but we are going to do it to just a handful of the petals. And this is a trend that really took off in Los Angeles and is now taking off throughout the country. So really pretty. I certainly would not do this to every single rose in my arrangement, but to 2 or 3 of them. it's really beautiful. So just like that. Okay. And the golden mustard, just add a little bit of really buttery, warm yellow. I love golden mustards for January. There's something that's like, kind of like chicken soup for the soul. Golden mustard, so really pretty. So I'll maybe reflex 2 or 3 of my golden mustards total. I don't want to go overboard with reflexed roses, but just a few. It's fun. And we really only reflex roses for centerpieces or larger arrangements. I wouldn't necessarily reflex in a bridal bouquet, only because if you really like move around and shake a reflexed rose, it'll curl back on itself. So really only practical to do for bigger pieces. Okay. And the rest of them we'll just work in as they are. It's certainly fine if, as you design, you decide that one side of your arrangement is your front. Oftentimes, if I know that I'm making something for, like I have a console table or a foyer table in my home, I'll make my arrangement very front heavy and then leave the back a little bit more empty because no one will see it from the back. So you can decide as you go if you want to really load up one side of your design with beautiful flowers, or if you need this to be an all-sided design. And that's a decision that you can make, no right or wrong answer. So next I'm gonna pop in my beautiful Miyabi garden roses, and you'll see again that this arrangement is going to transform just by adding this gorgeous pinky color. So really, really beautiful. All right, so our next ingredients are our littler fill flowers. I'm going to start with my Hanoi Ranunculus, and I'll come around and show you. These are so beautiful. This is a clone ranunculus, and you can always tell when you're handling a clone versus another type of ranunculus just by virtue of how flat the flower is. See how that's almost totally flat. And the clonies tend to be a lot fatter blooms, so really nice and wide blooms. And clonies are really not available year-round. They are a winter flower. Most of your clonies are going to be coming out of like Japan and Italy are big producers. Canada started producing some pretty killer ranunculus recently, so we're gonna go ahead and work these in. And you can let your ranunculus be a little bit more floaty, so you can leave the stem longer. So fun to, again, elongate the shape of your design. A lot of people will often ask what they should do with their buds. Your buds will not open once they are the flowers cut, but still really fun for texture. So if you like the look of your buds, go ahead and work those in as well. We also have some gorgeous dyed ornithogalum or Star of Bethlehem. Dyed flowers are a new thing. So dyed flowers were not popular or mainstream up until a few years ago, but they are really coming back with a vengeance. So this is part of the Brownie collection, which is a dyed brown flower, kind of like a mauve-y undertone, really pretty. And these are great to give a little bit of an airy feel to your design, so you can allow them to kind of float out past your flowers. And this is the time in the design where your chicken wire is really doing its job. It's fighting you. Once the vase starts to get really full, it can be difficult to get stems in with the chicken wire. But just take a deep breath. If it's not going in where you want it to, pull it out and try again, like an inch to the side. So I put 2 of my Star of Bethlehem off to one side, and then I've got the other off to the other side. Next, I'm gonna work in some beautiful sweet pea. So these are coming in from Holland. A little bit of light pink, which is picking up on your Miyabi. So we're gonna pop these in as well. Sweet pea is a flower that I definitely like to allow to hang out a little bit. They are super delicate and super scented, so really beautiful. But quite long lasting. Sweet pea definitely has the look that it would not be hardy, but it is. Also gonna pop in some beautiful peach ranunculus. These are not clony. You can tell they're a lot smaller and a lot less flat. The petals kind of curve in a cup shape, so it's a standard ranunculus, but still beautiful. And you can tell that we're allowing all of the colors to kind of play off of each other. So we've got gorgeous peach now in the ranunculus that plays off of the golden mustard, and it plays off of the center of the Miyabi garden roses. So really pretty. These littler ranunculus can be fun to allow to kind of float out of the design. And then the last ingredient, what we've saved for last, are our beautiful brownie tulips. So these are also color enhanced or dyed, and we're going to use these as our little finishing touch. The color is just stunning. It's a mauvey, bricky kind of pink. So we're gonna peel away the leaves. The leaves on the color treated tulips really are not all that beautiful, so we just wanna leave the bloom. And this is a flower that you can also reflex out. So if you don't like the look of reflex flowers, you do not have to, but you can transform the whole look and feel of the tulip by reflexing out the petals. So really beautiful. I also love the little bit of yellow in the center. So that's a big plus for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut again at an angle, and I'm gonna work my tulips in. So again, I'm gonna reflex. Certain varieties of tulips lend themselves a little bit better than others to being reflexed. Brownie tulips are awesome to do this with. This is such a pretty soft spring palette. Really beautiful. So tulips are an interesting flower because they are phototropic, which is a really long name for a flower that continues to grow after it's been cut and to grow towards its light source. So your tulips are definitely going to move around on you a little bit in your design. It's not uncommon for them to grow up to an inch overnight. So if your tulips start getting a little bit unruly, you may need to recut the stems and shorten them a little bit. But so pretty, really fun. All right, so that is our beautiful garden style design. And at the end of a design, I always like to go back and kind of edit, see if there's anything that needs to get pulled out or moved around a little bit. So take your time repositioning your blooms if there's something that's shifted. Get it to the point that you really love the placement of everything. And as far as maintenance, we recommend keeping your flowers out of the direct sunlight and out of the direct heat or cold source. And that should keep them really nice and happy. And then the most important thing to do is to add some fresh water once a day, just room temperature water, and you should be off to the races. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to message us or comment below. We'd be happy to get back to you. And we hope we see you in a workshop again soon. Hope everyone has a great day. Bye-bye.